Kevin Durso. I haven't forgotten about him. He's our 97.3 ESPN Flyers insider, and he's got an article up on our website now. New number, new chapter for JVR. He joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline to talk a little hockey. Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We're doing just fine, even if I did forget what game is on our air tonight. I didn't forget that JVR signed a big offseason deal to come to Philadelphia. Tell us about the new number and James Van Riemsdyk's comments about that and coming back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, James Van Riemsdyk wore number 25 in Toronto for the last couple of seasons, and basically he is viewing this opportunity coming back to Philadelphia as a new chapter of his career, and you can't really blame him with the way that the first chapter of his career in Philadelphia ended, so it's a new beginning for him. He sticks with the number he had before. Scott Lawton gets to keep the number 21. He said there was no negotiating about that. So number 25 is a new number. So anybody who had number 21 JVR jerseys from his first tenure in Philadelphia, they're going to need to look into new jerseys.
I may not have told you this story before, Kevin, but there was a period of time when my girlfriend casually said to me, I was going to get you a Flyers jersey, what number should I get? And I said, Mike Richards. He's the captain of the team. He's not going anywhere. So in a closet somewhere, I have the year they did the Winter Classic in Boston, I have that Winter Classic jersey with the 18 Richards on the back. And, of course, that quickly became with the mothballs, right? So I always think be careful what number you get or what jersey you get. You never know if the guy's going to be on the team or not.
Yeah, you never know for sure. And, you think about those deals that they made in that particular offseason that you're referencing with Mike Richards. A lot of people had Jeff Carter jerseys. You still see them floating around as well at games at the Wells Fargo Center. So it doesn't really matter who you go for. You never know when someone's on the block or when someone's being factored out of the plan moving forward. So jersey numbers, it's more of a formality to the player than anything. There's some players who get very superstitious about it. I know that Shane Gostisbehere did a Q&A on Instagram, on the Flyers Instagram, and it was something about, or his girlfriend did actually, I believe it was, but it was something about why does he wear 53, and the reason behind it is he had such a good rookie year wearing 53, he got superstitious about it, but I wonder if the number of fans showing up wearing number 53 played a factor in that as well. Some players embrace the number they get, and others, it's not a big deal to them.
So put on your GM hat. We're spending a few minutes here with Kevin Durso, our 97.3 ESPN Flyers insider on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Is the JVR deal one of the worst deals? Jeff Carter leaving because Jeff Carter's had success. Mike Richards has not had as much success once he left Philadelphia. But where would you put the JVR getting shipped out deal in the pantheon of bad deals?
It ranks right up there for sure. I do think it's a worse deal than the Richards or Carter deal because you have to think about what the Flyers netted back out of those two deals. When Mike Richards gets dealt to L.A., that at least brought you back Wayne Simmons and Braden Shen. The deal with Carter, which was to Columbus first, brought you back Jake Voracek and a first-round pick that ended up being Sean Couturier. So at least you had pieces up until a year ago, if we're talking Braden Shen at least, that were the rewards from that deal, and we're at least making contributions to the team at that time. The JVR deal was essentially it was a one-for-one swap, and it brought you Luke Shen. And while he stuck around for a few years, it didn't really improve the blue line any, and left the Flyers with just as many questions as before. So that's not a deal that gets looked at fondly at all as compared to the others, because you look at the Richards deal, Wayne Simmons coming back. Wayne Simmons is a fan favorite in Philadelphia. The Jeff Carter deal got the Flyers, Sean Couturier, and Jake Voracek in a sense. So those deals proved to be successful in time. And I think the only thing that sits fresh in people's minds is that eventually Jeff Carter made his way to L.A. with Mike Richards, and they got 2 Stanley Cups out of it.
Right.
And the Flyers are still searching for it.
Yeah, definitely searching for that. I do know this, that I'd heard some talk that the reason JVR got shipped out the first time was that they felt he was soft or he wasn't physical enough. And with Chris Pronger having moved on at that point or being injured, that they were looking for some sort of a bruiser or a banger on the blue line. And they thought that they could, get rid of JVR to get that piece back. But obviously, hindsight 2020, it didn't work out for them. You're right, though, that the JVR that they're getting back is quite different than the JVR they shipped away.
Yeah, definitely. This is a guy with so much more experience, and he comes in more established. I don't think anybody really had any idea who he was the year he got drafted. That draft year was all about Patrick Kane, and he went first overall, obviously. And then everybody after that, it was a fairly even listing from 2 to 5 at least, you would say. JVR was second, Kyle Turris was third, guys like that. And he comes back now off of his best offensive season goal-scoring-wise in his career, and you look at where he is now and just the way that he goes out. He's a player who scores a lot of goals by being in front of the net. He plays the net front really well, can pick up rebounds. He does all those things. And I think you're going to see an improved player offensively in different ways than just being in front of the net and being able to score. You're looking at a guy who probably is going to be able to move around a little bit better than he did as a rookie and get into those positions a lot quicker than he did before. He even said in his press conference, sometimes we think about speed in the game and instantly want to go to skating speed. And sometimes it has to be speed with your decision-making, how quickly you can get into the right place. And if he feels like that's the place where he's improved greatly, then that's a big help to the Flyers because I think they've got a lot of forward-thinking kind of guys. There's guys who are ahead of the thought process a little bit. And I think personally, he should be playing with one of those guys when the season rolls around. That's Nolan Patrick, this guy who showed that he's got that forward-thinking and can kind of think faster than he can maneuver the puck sometimes. And that's a way you want to see JVR play. And he also talked about playing with the youth and playing with right-handed shots. Well, there's one in Nolan Patrick who he could be a fit with.
Kevin, this is Ryan, and you literally segued into my question absolutely brilliantly. So Nolan Patrick, he was actually, I just saw, predicted as the #1 breakout player next year for the 2018-2019 season by the guys over at NHL Network. And I wanted to ask you your thoughts on Nolan Patrick, specifically how he could be a line mate with JVR. Patrick is a natural setup guy. JVR, the natural finisher. So is that a match made in heaven? And if you want to touch a little bit on Patrick specifically and then how those two can be potentially a huge part of the Flyers' success next year.
I think the first reason you can look at Nolan Patrick as a potential fit with JVR is actually kind of Claude Giroux in a sense, because I don't know that you want to disrupt anything about the first line. Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier worked so well together a year ago. Travis Konechny was a fit on that line as well. So you might have your first line and not even be thinking about your top free agent acquisition yet. Then that takes you to the second line. JVR is obviously a fit on the left wing there. And then Nolan Patrick kind of seems to slot right in. I certainly see what the guys at NHL Network were thinking with this kind of prediction. Once he got healthy toward the second half of last season, he showed signs of being that franchise player that was advertised in the draft and leading up to. And quite frankly, the guy who probably, if there was an injury history following him, would have gone first overall, and we might not be talking about him. So in a sense, his injury history may have helped the Flyers kind of luck into him being there at #2, and Nico Hischier being the guy who jumped up and went first overall because of that. Who knows? That might be the situation where Nolan Patrick comes out of this as the guy who ends up on the Flyers, who ends up being maybe the better player over the longer-term career at that point. Who knows? We have to see that. But to put him with JVR, I just think there's a great fit because JVR is that finishing type. I think Patrick's got some of that in his game too, and I think he'll showcase it more if he's around more skilled guys. But to put him with JVR and to let him showcase the vision, to showcase the hockey sense that he was advertised to have, all that, that's probably the best place for him to start this season. Give him a pure goal scorer on his left wing who knows how to finish, and let him do a good chunk of the setting up in that sense. And we haven't even talked about the other side, the other wing that's going to be playing on that line potentially, and it's probably going to be a guy like Jake Voracek, who's got a little bit of both to his game, certainly knows how to finish at times, but is another guy who looks to set up. That trio could be a very, very good second line for this team and give them that kind of depth that they need to be a top-end team, or at least be a player in the Eastern Conference and the Metropolitan Division.
At least two good lines, says Kevin Durso. But what about that third line? Who do you like at third line center, Kevin? Would you rather go with Scotty Lawton or Jordan Wheel?
I don't know that I have a preference between the two. I certainly can vouch for giving Lawton a chance. He's paid his dues with the Flyers since his draft year and has worked his way up to the NHL. And kind of deserves to get that look at the third line. I kind of like to see them experiment with both guys in the preseason and see who seems to be forming the better chemistry. If Lawton's got more from an energy standpoint and fits better on the fourth line, then you can certainly play Jordan Wheel at that spot. I think what's more telling about that is that Ron Hextall's gone out of his way to say Jordan Wheel's an option for the third line center spot, when most of us have been talking about Scott Lawton as the kind of obvious choice if you're going to go with somebody who's already been in the system, or you go, what about a guy who kind of comes a little bit off the page a little bit, and pick a guy like, say, Morgan Frost is ready and he's able to come into that spot. We've been talking about guys like that, and we really haven't given Jordan Wheel much thought, because since Jordan Wheel was traded to the Flyers, he's been a winger the whole time. But he does have that center pedigree to his game, and he has it in his past, and he has taken faceoffs as part of his time with the Flyers. So he certainly can be a fit. And maybe that's the move that he needs to get his scoring touch back. He came on really strong that one particular season 2 years ago. He only played 23 games, so that second half he was a big player. And last season was a little bit of a disappointment from an offensive standpoint and from the numbers. So maybe that's what he needs to bring his numbers back around and bring his offensive game back around, by being more responsible by playing the center role.
Kevin Durso with us, our 97.3 ESPN Flyers insider on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. I guess Robert Haig tried to wrap up those negotiations, and then there's still that lurking out there about Wayne Simmons. We had Hexie on, Kevin. There was two things I remember from that interview. He said almost the exact same thing. We'd like to sign Simmer, whether we can or not. I don't have the answer to that. He told us that, as I think he said again this week. And then also, when I asked him about Morgan Frost, he said, it's funny how many people praise Morgan Frost and they've never seen him play a game. And I shot back, YouTube, Hexie, YouTube. And he said, but those are only the highlights.
Yeah, and I certainly, I listened back to that interview as well, and I certainly know where he's going with that, because you have to watch the little nuances in his game. You saw flashes of that from Nolan Patrick a year ago when he was coming up through the preseason, when the Flyers really, and Hextall wouldn't really commit to him being in the lineup when everybody kind of thought it was a foregone conclusion. And that's where you got to see how he played away from the puck, and those are the things that the GM and scouts are going to watch for more than what we see sometimes with, he made a good pass and set up a teammate for a goal, or he went in and scored a highlight reel goal. We see all of that, and we'll see some of his drills at development camp, and they're not evaluating at development camp like we are sometimes. But to go back to the other two guys that were mentioned, Robert Haig and Wayne Simmons, Hextall actually addressed both of those guys after the press conference with JVR. And Robert Haig, they said a deal should be done presumably by the end of next week, I'll say, just because he said by the end of the month. August 1st is next Wednesday, so presumably that's what they're working on. He does have the qualifying offer on the table, which would be a 1-year deal. They're trying to work out a 2-year deal, so we'll see where that goes. But certainly they're going to get him signed pretty shortly, in short order here at some point. And it doesn't seem like there's much anymore to the Wayne Simmons trade talks right now. It seems like right now the goal is get it done with, or at least table that for now. If talks come up, great. If not, you got the whole season to kind of address that, and next off season if you need to. And the goal is still to keep him around in the long term, or at least for the next few years, and to keep him around beyond next season. And I think that's a fair assessment on Simmons too. You know, he is a fan favorite, as I mentioned, and he's coming off a year where he was really banged up, had a bunch of different injuries, too many to list almost, and still had a modest offensive season. He really came on strong at the start of the season, and then it started to kind of go away as the injuries piled up. But maybe he comes back fully healthy and is able to bring the offense that was expected of him, or even a portion of that. Maybe you're not expecting the 30 goals. He's not going to play maybe in that kind of role. But maybe he gives you 20 to 25 again, just like he did this year as a fully healthy player, and maybe not in as prominent of a role. Who knows if he's playing on the top power play now that you've got JVR and Nolan Patrick work there too, or maybe he's playing on the third line as opposed to the second line. You never know, and that's really where the ball is in Dave Haxtall's court at this point, because he's going to make the lineup decisions, and he's kind of got nowhere to hide anymore at this point, because they've got the talent level starting to pile up at the NHL level. We're not really talking about who's coming anymore. We're talking about who's here, and he's got to find a way to make those guys fit and make sure the best lineup is on the ice when when the Flyers are taking the ice for the games that matter come October.
Our best lineup includes Kevin Durso. Give him a follow at Kevin_Durso on Twitter. He's our Flyers insider for 97.3 ESPN. He's been our guest on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thank you, Kevin. Have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you, guys. You too.